Healing. An absolutely necessary part of Minecraft. Normally it's done by just eating food, but maybe that's too easy for you. Maybe you need something harder. Well, that's why this mod exists. Hardcore 2.0. A mod designed with the intention of making hardcore just a little bit more difficult by removing all natural healing from the game. In other words, food is only useful for sprinting now. You can still heal, but now you need status effects, like regeneration or instant health, or alternatively absorption, even though that's not really as good as the other two. So today we're going to be trying to beat this slightly changed difficulty on our first try. So if I die, it will be the third loss on our current losing streak for the channel because I gotta upload this. It's been too long since I made something. Anyways, let's begin. So if I'm going to beat this, I'm going to need to do it a little differently. Normally I would just gather my tools and immediately head for a cave, but that wasn't the best plan here and was probably going to get me killed. So I opted for this. Instead of relying on an axe or a sword like I normally would, I'm gonna immediately start working on getting a bow and arrows so I can kill monsters without even giving them a chance to hurt me, because when I tell you that every heart matters, I mean every heart matters. So, let's get to work. Starting with the arrows. I don't want to run around forever looking for a village, so I'll stick to killing chickens for now, and then I'll gather some gravel. I would have gotten the string first, but that would mean fighting a spider, and as you should know, we're avoiding as much conflict as possible. And that's why it was so lucky for us to run into this village after killing a bunch of chickens. A village means that we can get a Fletcher, and a Fletcher means arrows and a bow with 0 risk. All I have to do is trade, and that's easy. And just like that, I was equipped with my 2 best friends for this difficulty, a bow and an arrow, or a lot of arrows. Moving on, the next thing for me to do is actually going to be to get diamonds, and also some gold so I can craft a few golden apples, because I've got an odd feeling that I'm going to need a way to heal starting about now, and I'm also going to need a way to get obsidian so I can craft an enchanting table. So, let's move on to the next part of my progression. I wasn't expecting this trip to be super long or hard, because most times, finding diamonds comes relatively easily for me because I guess I'm just lucky. But it seemed like this time was going to take a little longer. The roll generation wasn't exactly in my favor, and fighting monsters was a huge pain. I couldn't just swipe them away with a melee weapon. Instead, I had to go through the long process of constantly reloading my bow and moving away. And skeletons were even worse because those were like competitions to see who could draw their bow the fastest. But we're only here for 5 diamonds, so let's just stay focused on that. And that makes 5 diamonds, which is all I need. And because I had my diamonds, I could have just mined some obsidian, enchanted my gear, and went to the nether because I already had a fair amount of gold that should have been enough for all my healing needs. But eventually I came across the deep dark, and usually if you can find skulk along these lava rivers, there's bound to be an ancient city up ahead. So I decided I would spend a few moments looting it, and I would have gone further, but I realized that darkness with these visual mods turned into complete blindness because I couldn't see literally anything. Which meant if a warden spawned, I would be relying purely on sound to know where he's at, and I also wouldn't be able to tell if I was running into lava. So to avoid these things, I just left the city entirely. And after I left the city, I was finally finished getting the diamonds, getting the gold, crafting the apples, dealing with monsters, getting obsidian, enchanting my armor, and making the nether portal. Which meant I can move on to the second phase of my world, and also the most dangerous, which is the nether. Man, I was really hoping for a better spawn. So spawning in a Soul Sand Valley was only the second worst biome for me to spawn in, with the first being a Crimson Forest, because skeletons or ghast are 2 of my worst enemies, and coincidentally, they also happen to be the only 2 mobs that I run into when I'm here. Fortunately, I get to leave the area relatively soon because I found what I was looking for, which was a fortress. Now we get to farm those blaze rods and worry about fire damage, the second worst thing in the game for me. Still nothing compared to poison though. Thank God that never happened. Anyways, the blaze rods took me just a little bit of time. Once I found a spawner, I killed a few blazes and then made a few changes. I didn't want them flying around because that would make my job more difficult and dangerous, which of course I didn't want. And after making these changes, it was really just a matter of time. Sitting around, waiting for a blaze to spawn, killing it, and then doing it all over again. Till eventually I had about 9 blaze rods. And this was more than I needed, but I'm not going to complain about having an excess. Anyways, with my blaze rods out the way, it's time to leave the nether. I've got a different plan from usual for getting my ender pearls. Okay, so the plan for getting ender pearls is going to be a bit of a long one, I'll be honest. Remember how we got our bow and arrows? Yeah, we'll be doing that again. And if you forgot, we did that through trading, and last time it only took us something over half a stack of logs. Unfortunately this time, we're going to have to get a lot more than that. This is because we're using a cleric, and we don't have materials to level it up with. However, we can still do this by making purchases instead of sales. This means we'll be chopping trees for 2 things. 1, to level up the cleric, and 2, to buy ender pearls once it reaches expert level. So let's go ahead and get to work. You know, I think the only thing I can compare this to is Hypixel Skyblock, and if you played that before, you know why. And then finally, after a long time of chopping trees, I was ready to do some trading. But most of those trees were actually going towards leveling up the villager, so I was actually going to need even more. But I won't bore you with all that, so let's move on to the next and final part of this world. It only took us 1,000,000 years, but we did it. We got the Ender Pearls. So now that I had the Ender Pearls, I can move on to the end to finish off this run. But before I went there, I had a decision to make. I could either go straight there with what I had right now, which I'm gonna be honest, should have been enough, or I could go with the slightly longer route of going back to the Nether to get warts from that fortress to make instant healing potions. After a little thinking, I decided I was gonna go back to the Nether. This is supposed to be a one-try thing, so why would I want to take that risk? Yes! Oh, we found it. Alright, so those nether warts were pretty much the last thing I was gonna need besides sand for some bottles. Once I had that, I made my potions and ran off to find the stronghold. And since we're getting to the end, I guess I may as well say this now. This wasn't as hard as I was expecting it to be. It took like 2 times longer than usual and had me more stressed, but the actual process wasn't exactly challenging. Sure, fighting was a hell of a pain because I had to almost always have my shield up, but all I had to do was just avoid fighting. Guess that's a good thing I'm good at running, huh? But speaking of running, we're now arriving at our destination. And I'm gonna be honest, I was a little scared now. If I died to the Ender Dragon, then all my work would have been for nothing. But we've come this far, so let's finish this. Hello, puppies. Let's win. Alright, so this fight actually isn't supposed to be hard. It's really just a regular dragon. I didn't use any difficulty mods here, so the fight is gonna go about how it usually would. Shooting the crystals, then killing the dragon. And since I'm trying to minimize the amount of damage I take, I have to make sure that I move positions anytime I hear the dragon through the fireball. Dragon's Breath is probably going to be the easiest way for me to slip up, because that does a pretty big amount of damage. Getting knocked into the sky by the wings would be bad too, but I made sure to bring an Ender Pearl with me just in case that happens. So I began, and for the most part, this fight went swimmingly, but the knockback was still a bit of a problem. And now that I knew that it could happen during takeoff, I was going to make sure that I absolutely was not under the wings, because I got lucky just now. And having said this, I wanted the fight to be over the very next time the dragon perched, because the longer this goes on, the higher chance I have to lose. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, guys. I am so sorry. It's over. We did it. It took us quite a while, but we did it. So in total, we spent 3.19 hours on this world. And a lot of that was just spent getting wood. I'm ashamed of that, but it's over now. Which means I can say goodbye.